1990s, Samar Province, Philippines. Airline pilots flying over dense jungle saw a massive city glowing below them, brighter than Manila, in a place where no city should exist. But here's what makes your blood run cold. When they checked their maps, that location showed nothing but empty forest, and when they flew back the next day, the city was gone. If an entire city can appear and disappear without a trace, what else are we not seeing? The eastern coast of Samar looks like most forgotten places in the Philippines. Thick jungle runs right up to the rocky shore. Small fishing villages dot the coastline. Between them, there's nothing but green. No roads, no power lines, no lights at night, just darkness and the sound of waves hitting stone. But pilots flying over this area started reporting something that should not be there. They saw a city, not a small town, a real city with tall buildings and bright lights. It appeared below them in places where their maps showed only trees. Some said it looked bigger than any city in the region. The lights were so bright they could navigate by them. They wrote it down in their flight logs. They told other pilots, and every single one of them described the same thing in the same location. The local people already knew about it. They called it Biringan. Fishermen had been seeing the lights for years. They used them like a lighthouse to find their way home in the dark. Old folks said the city had been there since their grandparents were young. Some said it had been there for hundreds of years. But when anyone tried to visit it on purpose, they could never find it. The jungle was just jungle, empty and green and quiet. The official answer came fast. The government said it was a mistake. Maybe the pilots saw distant towns and got confused. Maybe it was the reflection of lights on clouds. Maybe it was nothing at all. The Air Force said the pilots were seeing things that were not there. Move along. Nothing to investigate. Just stories from a backward province that still believed in old tales. But that answer started falling apart the moment people looked closer. The pilots were trained professionals. They flew the same routes every week. They knew what towns looked like from the air. They knew their instruments. And the city they saw was always in the exact same spot. A spot where nothing existed. Not on any map, not in any record, just empty coordinates in the jungle. Then there were the drivers. And bus drivers and truck drivers who traveled the rough roads through Samar at night. Some of them started telling a different kind of story. They said they had driven through Biringan, not seen it from far away, actually driven through its streets. One bus driver told what happened to him on a normal night route. He was driving along a dirt road in the mountains. It was late, dark. He knew this road like he knew his own hands. Then suddenly the road changed. It became smooth, perfect. Streetlights appeared, then buildings, tall ones, made of glass and concrete, beautiful and clean. Nothing like the small towns he usually passed through. He stopped his bus because he was confused. Where was he? He had driven this route 100 times. There was no city here, but when he looked around he saw people on the sidewalks. They were dressed nicely, too nicely for a remote province. They looked at him but did not wave. Some got on his bus. They sat down quietly. They did not talk. He asked where they wanted to go, but they just smiled. He started driving again. His head felt strange, like he was in a dream, but also awake. The city seemed to go on forever, block after block of perfect buildings and empty streets. Then suddenly he was back on the dirt road. The jungle pressed in on both sides. His bus was empty, no passengers. He checked his watch. Hours had passed. He had driven more than 100 kilometers past where the city appeared, but he only remembered a few minutes. When he checked his gas tank, it was full. He had not stopped for gas. He never stopped for gas in that area because there were no gas stations. Yet his tank was full, and the money in his wallet was gone. Not stolen, just gone. Vanished like the city. People called him crazy. They said he fell asleep while driving and dreamed it all, but he was not the only one. Other drivers told the same story. Always the same city. Always the same feeling of wrongness, always waking up hours later and miles away with pieces of time missing from their memory. And none of them could explain one simple thing. If it was just a dream or a mistake, why did they all describe the exact same place? The stories about Biringan were not new. That was the first thing researchers found when they started looking into old records. Catholic priests had written about it in the 1600s. Spanish colonial documents mentioned a mysterious city in Samar that local people spoke about but could never show to visitors. The reports went back centuries. Always the same island. Always the same descriptions. Always impossible to find. In the 1980s, a professor from the University of the Philippines decided to collect every story he could find. He traveled to Samar and talked to fishermen, farmers, drivers, and old folks who remembered their parents talking about the city. He wrote down everything: dates, times, locations, weather, what people saw, what they felt, what happened after. What he found made him stop sleeping well. The details matched too perfectly. People who had never met each other described the same streets, the same type of buildings, even the same feeling in the air. They said the city felt too clean, too quiet, like sound did not travel right. Birds did not sing near it. The wind did not blow the same way. Fishermen were the most consistent witnesses. They saw the lights almost every week, always at night, always in the same direction from their boats. The lights were bright white, not the yellow glow of regular bulbs. They never flickered. They just stayed steady and bright against the dark jungle. Some fishermen used them to know where they were when GPS was not common yet. One old fisherman told the professor something that made him stop writing. He said that once when he was young he sailed toward the lights. He wanted to see the city up close. As his boat got nearer to shore, the lights got brighter. He could see individual buildings, roads, even cars moving on those roads. But when his boat touched the beach, everything went dark, just jungle. He searched the area for hours. Nothing. When he sailed back out to deeper water, the lights appeared again. Pilots had similar stories but with more details because they had instruments. In the 1990s, several commercial pilots spoke quietly about what they saw. They could not talk publicly because it might hurt their careers, but in private they confirmed it. Flying over the eastern mountains of Samar, they would see a large lit city below. Their instruments showed they were over uninhabited jungle. The maps showed nothing, but their eyes saw buildings and streets and lights. One pilot tried to take a photo. His camera stopped working. When he landed, the camera worked fine again. Another pilot tried to mark the exact coordinates. When he checked them later on a map, they pointed to a place with no roads and no people for 50 kilometers in any direction. The professor tried to get the government interested. He wrote reports. He presented his findings to officials. They listened politely and did nothing. The police said it was not their job to investigate stories. The Air Force said their pilots must be mistaken. Local officials in Samar said it was just culture and folklore. Nothing real, nothing to study. Some records started disappearing. Old newspaper articles about Biringan could not be found in archives. Church documents went missing. People who talked too much about the city started getting warned to stop. Not threatened, just warned. Told it was better to let sleeping dogs lie. Told that some mysteries should stay mysterious. But one person refused to let it go. A local journalist who grew up hearing the stories decided to investigate seriously. She talked to everyone she could find who claimed to see the city. She made timelines. She drew maps. She compared testimonies from people who lived hundreds of kilometers apart and had never met. She found something nobody else had noticed. The people who entered the city and came back all said the same thing about the people they met there. The inhabitants of Biringan were beautiful. Too beautiful. Perfect faces. Perfect clothes. But their eyes were wrong. Empty somehow, and they always offered something. Money. Gold. Food. A ride. Something to make you stay. The ones who accepted the offer had stranger stories. They said time moved differently inside the city. What felt like minutes turned into hours. What felt like hours turned into days. Some said they aged faster while inside. Some said they did not age at all. All of them said that anything they took from the city turned into something else when they left. Money became leaves. Food became dirt. Gifts became stones. The journalist wrote a long article about everything she found. It was supposed to run in a major Manila newspaper. The day before it published, the editor killed the story. No explanation, just killed. The journalist tried other papers. None would touch it. She posted some of it online. The posts kept getting deleted. Then, in 2003, she died. Motorcycle accident on a clear day on a straight road. She was a good driver. The motorcycle was new. No one could explain why she crashed. After her funeral, her family could not find her research notes. Everything about Biringan was gone from her apartment. Her computer files were wiped. That same year, something new happened. These satellite companies started using better cameras in space. Some of those images showed strange light patterns over eastern Samar at night. Lights and patterns that looked like city grids, in places with no cities. The images were flagged as errors, probably glitches in the camera. They were marked for deletion. But a few people saved copies before they disappeared. Those copies showed something impossible. A city layout, clear as day. Streets in a grid, buildings in blocks, all in the middle of empty jungle. The coordinates matched exactly where pilots and fishermen said Biringan appeared. By the 2000s, belief in Biringan had split into two camps. The old people and the local folks still believed completely. They had seen too much to deny it, but younger people and outsiders thought it was all nonsense. A superstition from a place that needed better education and less religion. The split created tension. Families argued about it. Friends stopped talking. The city that might not exist was tearing apart the people who definitely did. Then the stories got darker. People were not just seeing the city anymore. Some were vanishing near the places where it appeared. In 1998, a college student went hiking in the mountains of Samar. He was experienced. He had good equipment. He told his friends exactly where he was going. He never came back. The search party that looked for him reported something strange. They saw lights in the jungle ahead of them. City lights. Street lights. They heard traffic sounds. Car horns. Voices. But when they walked toward the sounds, everything went silent. They found no student. They found no city. As just trees and rocks and fear. The official report said he probably fell and could not be found in the thick jungle. His family said that made no sense. The area was searched by dozens of people for weeks. They should have found something. A backpack, clothes, bones, anything. There was nothing. He walked into the jungle and disappeared like smoke. More people started refusing to go into certain areas. Loggers would not cut trees in specific valleys. Hunters avoided certain mountains even when they saw deer there. Locals stopped traveling on some roads at night. When asked why, they said the same thing. Those places felt wrong. The air was different. Sound traveled strangely. And sometimes, if you were not careful, you saw things you should not see. Scientists tried to explain it all away. They talked about something called Fata Morgana. It is when light bends in the atmosphere and makes you see things that are not there, like a mirage in the desert. But Fata Morgana does not explain physical touch. It does not explain getting in a bus in a city and riding it. It does not explain buying cigarettes with real money. The science did not fit the stories. Other experts mentioned ball lightning, rare electrical events that glow and move in strange ways. But ball lightning lasts seconds, not hours. It does not look like buildings. It does not have streets full of people. Again, the explanation failed. Some suggested mass hysteria. When one person believes something, others start believing it too. The mind creates what it expects to see. But mass hysteria does not show up on satellite images. It does not create consistent coordinates. It does not explain why trained pilots with instruments see the same thing as uneducated fishermen with nothing but their eyes. Every logical explanation had holes. Every scientific answer left questions. That made some people angry. They wanted Biringan to be fake so badly that they attacked anyone who said otherwise. Witnesses were called liars. Investigators were called fools. Even suggesting the city might be real could get you laughed out of serious conversations. But a different group believed something else entirely. They said Biringan was real, but not from our world. They pointed to old Filipino beliefs about Encanto, nature spirits that could make humans see things, spirits that could create whole cities as glamour and illusion to lure people away from the real world. In this theory, Biringan was a trap. A beautiful trap set by something non-human to catch human souls. Others thought it might be a slip in time, a place where past, present, and future all existed at once. Maybe Biringan was a city from another time appearing briefly in ours, or maybe it was our future showing itself too early, or our past refusing to stay buried. Time, they said, might not work the way we think it does. A newspaper in Samar printed a quote from a bus driver in 1994. He said, "I do not care if you believe me. I drove through that city. I bought cigarettes there. The money I used vanished from my wallet." He refused to give his name. He just wanted people to know he was not crazy, that it happened, that it was real. People who entered the city all described the same sensory details. The air smelled too clean, like right before a thunderstorm, but sweeter. There were no bird sounds, no insects, just city noises, cars, footsteps, distant voices. But those sounds felt hollow, like they were copied from real sounds but missing something important. The lights were always described the same way. White light, not yellow like old bulbs, not blue like new LEDs. Just pure white light that did not seem to come from any source. It just existed in the air. And when people touched things in the city, they felt real but cold. Even in the humid jungle heat, everything in Biringan felt cold to the touch. Then, in 2015, something happened that could not be ignored. A military helicopter was doing anti-insurgency patrols over Samar. The pilot radioed his base. He said he saw an uncharted city below him, large, modern, not on any of his maps. And he said he was going down to investigate. Then the radio went silent. For 6 hours, the military could not contact the helicopter. They sent search planes. Nothing. They called nearby bases. No one had seen it. The helicopter had vanished. Then, 6 hours later, it appeared on radar. It was on the ground 200 miles away from where it went silent. The pilot was unconscious in the cockpit but unharmed. When he woke up, he remembered nothing after making the radio call about the city. The fuel in the helicopter did not match the distance it traveled. It should have been empty, or nearly empty. It was half full. The instruments showed no flight path, no record of movement. The helicopter had somehow jumped 200 miles in 6 hours with no memory and no explanation. The military classified the incident immediately. No investigation was made public. The pilot was told not to talk about it. He retired from service a year later and refused all interviews. The official record says the helicopter experienced mechanical failure and made an emergency landing. It does not mention the city. It does not mention the missing time. It does not mention anything that mattered. That was when some people realized the truth. The government was not ignoring Biringan because they thought it was fake. They were ignoring it because they knew it was real and had no idea what to do about it. How do you explain a city that breaks every rule of reality? How do you investigate something that does not stay in one place? How do you protect citizens from something you do not understand? So they did what governments do with impossible problems. They pretended the problem did not exist. They buried reports. They discouraged witnesses. They made sure no official investigation ever happened. Because if they admitted Biringan was real, they would have to admit they were powerless to explain it or stop it. Today, Biringan is not listed as an unsolved mystery. It is not listed as anything. There is no official case file, no government investigation, no scientific study. The phenomenon exists in that strange space between acknowledged and ignored. Everyone knows about it. No one talks about it officially. It is real and unreal at the same time, just like the city itself. The case status is simple. There is no case. The Philippine government does not recognize Biringan as something that needs investigating. Local officials in Samar give no comment when asked. The Air Force maintains that any reports from pilots are misidentifications. The police say it is a cultural matter, not a criminal one. So, officially, nothing happened. Nothing is happening. Nothing will ever happen. But, culturally, Biringan changed everything in the region. Parents warn their children never to follow beautiful strangers, never accept gifts from people they do not know, never enter a city they do not recognize. These warnings are given seriously, with fear in the parents' eyes. Because in Samar, the old stories are not just stories. They are survival instructions. The mystery has spread into Filipino popular culture. Movies feature the lost city. Television shows do episodes about it. Novels use it as a setting. It has become part of the national folklore even though many people outside Samar still think it is just a myth. But for the people who live there, it is as real as the ground under their feet. Tourism increased in some areas. People want to see where the city appears. They want to camp in the jungle and wait for lights. Local guides take them to the general areas but refuse to go to the exact spots. They will get close but not too close, because the guides know something tourists do not. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Some places are not meant to be visited. Roads have been built into some of the areas where Biringan supposedly appears. Construction crews started projects to develop the jungle. Then the projects stopped. Equipment broke down. Workers refused to return. Money ran out. The official reasons were always practical. Bad soil, poor planning, budget cuts. But locals knew better. You do not build roads where the spirits live. You do not put concrete where reality bends. The pilots who reported seeing the city mostly stayed quiet after their initial reports. Some retired early. Some transferred to different routes. None of them would do interviews after a certain point. They learned that talking about Biringan hurt careers, made people think you were unstable. So they stopped talking. But in private, among other pilots, they still told the stories, still warned the new pilots what to look for, still marked the coordinates on personal maps. The fishermen never stopped seeing the lights. Older fishermen still use them to navigate. Younger ones are more skeptical but still see something out there. Lights where no lights should be. They have smartphones now. They have tried to take photos. The phones stop working when pointed at the lights. Cameras freeze, batteries die. When they point the phones away, everything works again. Academic researchers gave up trying to study Biringan seriously. Any work on it got relegated to folklore departments, anthropology, cultural studies. Not real science, not real investigation, just stories. So the few researchers who care study it quietly. They collect testimonies in private. They share data in small circles. They wait for the day when maybe the world will be ready to look at impossible things seriously. What happened to the families of people who vanished near Biringan? They still live with not knowing. No bodies were ever found, no evidence of what happened. Just empty spaces where people used to be. Some families moved away, could not stand living so close to the place that took their loved ones. Others stayed. They put up memorials. They tell the stories. They make sure no one forgets. The places themselves have not changed much. The jungle is still thick. The mountains are still remote. The coastline is still rocky and wild. But there is a feeling in those areas that locals can sense. A watching feeling. Like something is there that you cannot quite see. Tourists do not feel it. They think the jungle is beautiful. But people from Samar feel it. They know when they are getting close to the thin places, the places where one world touches another. We still do not know what Biringan actually is. Is it real in a physical sense? Is it a trick of light and mind? Is it something beyond our current understanding of reality? We do not know why some people see it and others do not. We do not know why it appears in the same general area but never the exact same spot twice. We do not know where the people who vanished went. We do not know if anyone who fully entered the city ever came back whole. In 2023, someone posted coordinates on Reddit claiming to show Biringan on Google Maps. For 2 days, people who checked those coordinates saw something strange. The satellite view showed a developed area, streets, buildings, infrastructure, right in the middle of empty jungle. Then Google updated the images. Everything went back to jungle. The Reddit post was deleted. The user disappeared from the platform. No one saved screenshots because everyone thought it would stay up. Now there is no proof it ever happened, just memories and claims. Other cases around the world share similarities with Biringan, mysterious cities that appear and vanish, places that should not exist but do, coordinates where reality seems flexible. Japan has stories. Brazil has reports. Parts of Africa have legends that sound exactly like what happens in Samar. Maybe Biringan is not unique. Maybe there are thin places all over the world where something else shows through. What Biringan teaches us is uncomfortable. It teaches us that we do not know everything, that our maps might be incomplete, that there might be things existing right next to us that we cannot measure or prove or control. We have built a world where everything must be explainable, where mystery must be solved, where the unknown must become known. But Biringan refuses to cooperate. It stays mysterious. It stays impossible. It stays real despite being unreal. Maybe that is why it frightens people so much, not because it might be dangerous, though it might be, but because it suggests our understanding of reality is wrong, that the solid world we trust is not as solid as we think, that there are cracks we cannot see until we fall through them. Somewhere in the eastern jungles of Samar, lights will appear tonight. Someone will see them from a boat or a plane or a lonely road. They will wonder if their eyes are playing tricks. They will check their instruments or their maps. They will find nothing that explains what they are seeing, and they will have to choose. Do they investigate? Do they move closer? Do they try to enter the city that should not be there? Most will choose to look away, to explain it as something normal, to forget what they saw. But a few will not. A few will move toward the lights. A few will walk into that too clean air and those too white lights, and we will never know what they find there, because the people who enter Biringan completely do not come back to tell the story. The question is not whether Biringan exists anymore. Enough people have seen it that existence is not the issue. The real question is what it means that it exists, what it means that a city can be there and not there at the same time, what it means that reality has places where the rules break down. And the final question, the one that stays with you long after the story ends, is this. If you saw those lights tomorrow, if you found yourself standing at the edge of that impossible city, would you have the courage to walk in or the wisdom to walk away?